Okie dokie.
Hello, my friends. It's Marie Wallace here, and today my lovely guest is Beatrice Weber. So welcome, Beatrice. Thank you for coming today.
So awesome to be here with you. Thank you, Marie, for inviting me and for having me here.
Oh, I'm really super excited to share the gifts of this lovely woman. She is one of my fellow interspiritual ministers, so fellow Revs, and we've recently graduated, so we both have something to celebrate. But she's also a writer and a speaker and a coach, and she has some fun tools to share with us today. She's she's usually works with people who've experienced religious, familial, or community trauma, and she has that background and just helps us connect with our inner greatness and help us to be empowered and feel joyful. She was raised in an ultra-Orthodox Jewish community and was married off to a rabbi when she was just 18. And so she never got a chance to really graduate high school then. And after 22 years, she has 10 children. So that's a dynamic woman already. And she has some fun tools that she's going to share with us and tell us about that. So again, welcome. And thank you for being here. She's just.
Temperature set back to 70 degrees.
Excuse that.
Okay, so it's so awesome to be here, and thank you so much for introducing me so kindly. It's really wonderful to be here and to speak to you today. And I'm excited to share with you some of the tools that I've used for myself over the last several years. Leaving the community and gaining my voice and gaining my independence was a long process. These things don't happen overnight, and the actual leaving, was a story for itself. And I think after you post this, I'm going to be able to put links. So I'll put links to my stories where I write about that. Leaving was a significant in itself. But what I want to focus on is the mental leaving, right? Because oftentimes we can leave a bad situation, whatever that may be, a bad job, a bad relationship, a bad community. But until we do that work of leaving it in our minds and changing our mindset, we're still essentially stuck. So our beliefs are still holding us back from living that happy and joyous life. And, as is common in many highly fundamentalist religions, there's a lot of judgment and a lot of strictness. So for me, one of the big parts of my journey was letting go of that, how to let go of that self-judgment, which is kind of part of the territory when you are in such a strict religious environment. And what I've come to realize as I speak to more and more people about this is really very common across the board. We have been trained that self-judgment is almost a way to push ourselves, to motivate ourselves, right? When we want to get somewhere, when we want to succeed. So the more we'll be hard on ourselves and the more we'll beat up on ourselves, the quicker we'll achieve our goal or the harder we'll work. And I'm here to tell you that actually that self-judgment is actually something that holds you back and makes those changes so much harder. It doesn't mean you can't make those changes. I believe with self-will, anything can be accomplished. There was a time, when I was, still with my 10 children and married and in the community, I never thought that it would be actually possible for me to leave and have that freedom. It just seemed absolutely impossible, and now I live in my own apartment. I have my freedom. It may sound so simple to you, but when I walk outside, dressed however I want, because there were very strict dress codes from where I came with my hair. My hair was always covered, shaved my head and covered it for over 20 years, and walk my dog in the morning. I just feel such a sense of joy and freedom, like these simple pleasures, something that I thought I would never have. I was so constricted and so confined with what everybody else wanted me to do, with being the good wife, right? The good wife of a rabbi, the good mother. I was, my children were getting married also at 18. So I had one daughter married already by the time I left, and that was my role and my only role. So I'm going to talk to you now and jump in and talk to you about self-judgment.
That would be great. I would love to know a little bit of your process, because that gives us a picture in our heads of how we can overcome. So maybe just a little bit of your background on that too. That would be awesome. Thank you.
So what's interesting is that when I left, so I left my marriage 6 years, just over 6 years ago, and that's where my journey really began of exploring and figuring out. I had done a lot of personal development work beforehand, been in therapy probably for like 10 years by then, so it wasn't like it was a process to even think about the idea of maybe I can choose a life where I'm also important, so that definitely was a process. But I definitely was still using a lot of judgment to move myself ahead. At that point, I had gotten an MBA, which was an incredible accomplishment during my separation and divorce. And looking back at it, I'm like, how did I do that? But I was using a lot of the kind of that internal whip, really pushing myself, really driving myself. It got me very far, but it came to a point where it just was not working anymore. The more I got connected to that part of me deep inside that, we can describe it in many ways. We can describe it as the soul. We can describe it as my true self, whatever word we like to use. The more I got connected to that, the more this kind of whip didn't work anymore and didn't move me ahead and just drained me and made me tired. And it wasn't effective anymore moving ahead. And that's where I knew I had to look for more tools. I had to go to more positive spaces. I did a lot of inner child work, which is about connecting with that kind of inner child that we all have in ourselves. And I'm not going to focus on that now because I really want to talk about, specifically about the self-judgment, because I want you all to come out of here really having learned something that you can take with you. I started listening to a lot of Louise Hay with the positive affirmations. I started bringing a lot of gratitude into my life. But that self-judgment just was very stuck and very deeply stuck. And, a lot of self-judgment, I don't have much relationship with most of my children. And that mainly is as a result of the way the community is structured. And if you leave the community, there isn't the official shunning that exists in some Christian sects, for instance, Jehovah's Witness, but there's the unofficial, you're out, we're done with you. So, and obviously compounded with, who I was married to and his will. But, so a lot of judgment, self-judgment is couldn't I have done better? Couldn't I have done more? So the self-judgment definitely comes up. And I've really come to very clearly understand how harmful it is. So not only does it not feel good, right? It feels horrible. And it took a while. I mean, there was probably till about 2 years ago, I'd sometimes jump up early in the morning and hear myself telling myself, what's wrong with you? So I don't know if any of you experience anything like that, but for me, that was, okay, after I'd done so much work. So I had done the work. I was bringing positive affirmations. I was doing inner child work, and yet it was still there, like that critical voice. And I reached the point where I was telling myself, oh, and some of you may be in this space too, I've done so much work on myself. Why am I not where I want to be? Right?
Which is another whip, right?
Yeah, it's like, well, you've done this, personal development therapy for like forever. Why are you still with this? And I was working with somebody, and she explained to me so clearly the harm in self-judgment in such a clear way that I have never heard it before. And this is probably about 6 months ago, and it really shifted things so clearly to me and really allowed me to much quicker release self-judgment and bring in the positivity, the love, the caring. And I guess because I already had all those tools at my disposal, right? I knew what positive affirmations were. I did inner child work, and inner child work for me is, and there's varying ways of doing it, is that there's a loving parent inside of me that can take care of myself. So I had already brought those voices. The Ho'oponopono forgiveness prayer, which some of you may know of, was already part of kind of my toolkit. So because I already had all of those tools, which I know many of you also have, and Marie, I know you for sure do. So it was really a matter of really understanding the harm in it and kind of making that switch in my brain. So let me jump into it right away. Okay, when we start to, I'm going to use a specific example because it's much easier to understand it rather than if I use the abstract form. So, okay, so I decided I want to, I'm in college and I want to get a degree. Okay, so I decided in order to be successful, I need to study every night for 2 hours. Okay, that's going to make me successful, right? I can't expect to get my college degree if I don't. Okay, right? Simple enough.
Right.
And then one night I don't study. Okay, and the next night I study an hour and a half, and I start judging myself, and I start blaming myself, and I start getting down on myself, and I start saying, I can't believe it. You committed to yourself to do it. How are you not studying? Like, right? Right? We all have examples, whether it's our household, whether it's our relationships, right?
Right.
Okay, so what happens is our subconscious hates to feel that pain. It comes up with all kinds of blurry kinds of excuses, right? Oh, I'm too tired. I don't have the time. I don't think I can do this. This is not for me. You see, I should never have even tried. All that. Let's shift scenarios and let's try to do this without self-judging ourselves. Okay, so we didn't study for one night. We didn't study for the second night, and that voice of self-judgment wants to come up. And instead of coming up, we put it to the side and we start to listen. And what comes up, we journal, we meditate, whatever our practice is, and we try to explore and get curious, like, why am I not studying every night? And different things may come up for different people. For somebody may come up, well, a 2-hour chunk is way too long. I need to study half an hour chunks. Or actually, why did I even think I could study at night? I'm a morning person. I need to study in the mornings. Now, those ideas and those thoughts and seeing what's happening in front of you is only available to you if you're not self-judging yourself. The minute you self-judge yourself, you shut down any possibility of your brain to get creative and to think of any ideas and any possibility of change. Your brain hates pain, right? Your ego hates pain. So the minute you're feeling pain, the pain is the self-judgment. It shuts everything down, puts it back to the subconscious, and doesn't allow it to be revealed as a real issue that you can actually work with, play with, and bring in as some positive change in your life. So just understanding that has made it so much easier for me when I do see myself judging myself for something, which of course happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
Are
you human? Oh yeah, you're human.
That's the human thing. But the idea is, how quickly can you stop that? Right? How quickly can you say, okay, thank you very much, self-judgment. You step to the side. I'm too busy because I'm exploring this and I'm figuring this out. So that has just been for me such a simple way of explaining it, and to really understand that not only doesn't self-judgment feel good, not only does it feel horrible and just make us so irritable, and of course all judgment is the same. So when we're judging ourselves, we're judging the people around us. There's no difference between the two. The minute we're judging ourselves, we're judging other people as well. So there's no that, oh, I'm nice to everybody else besides for me. No, that there's no such thing, right? No. It's all one thing. So it just knowing that I can shut off that voice, right? And I can play with that, and I can be 1 second, I'm handling this right now, has really shifted things in terms of making that shift much quicker, and then having all the resources and all the tools at my disposal. There is one song that I listen to that, Maria, I'd love to share with your
I would love that.
This group that, yeah. So I'm not going to record it because I know the sound gets a little fuzzy, but we can put a link to it and I can tell you. So it's a song called I Will Be Gentle with Myself by Karen Drucker. And it talks about how I will be gentle with myself. I won't go faster than the slowest part of me is willing to go. I'll hold myself like a new soul. I'll hold my soul like a newborn baby. And listening to that song really reminds me of like, slow down. It's okay. It's fine. We'll get to it. And by doing that, it just brought me such a long way in terms of being able to release the self-judgment, be comfortable and happy with myself, and just create a joyous life where I get to make the choices in a way that feels really good.
I love that. In the coaching world, we're refocusing. Really, you're reframing things and refocusing, because our brain really likes to work with questions. So when you talked about the curiosity, that was the perfect spot, because like you said, our brain shuts down when there's pain. So when we come from a place of curiosity and questions, how can I turn this around? Then you're automatically looking for your possibilities, like you were saying. And we're always looking for evidence, right? When we're self-judging. What we did is we looked for evidence of how we were unworthy and how we had screwed up. And all we're doing is reframing it and going, oh, how can I now be more successful? Oh, block off my time. Oh, I can study in the morning. And so then, like you said, we're refocusing, and now we're looking for evidence of how to be successful. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. And I hope that when we're done with this, we'll go ahead and do the lyrics of the song as well, because I think having that tool of a song, because fortunately for us, we've been in that interfaith ministry where we've gotten a few tools to keep, to bring up, like songs that say, hey, that's something I can immediately do right now. If in the moment I go, what do I need? So I appreciate you sharing that song with us. And I know that you have quite a few other tools. Before we go, I want, I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to share with our audience, but I want to get one last little tidbit from you, as well as let us know how we can find you.
Okay, so I actually do a lot of writing on Medium. So that would be an awesome place for you to start and kind of hear my story. And I know the details may be very foreign to you, right? I was married at 18, have 10 children, 7 grandchildren. So a lot of the
You just look so young.
maybe like blow your mind if you watched the Unorthodox series on Netflix. That's kind of my community. So that's where I come from. But, I think the stories are very universal, and I've had many people read them from outside the world that I come from, and gained a lot of inspiration, because it's a human story, right? It's a human story of trying to find my voice, trying to release the expectations of everybody else, and who am I and what am I, which is the journey we're all after. So that's a good place to start. I also have a pretty active presence on Facebook. That's probably the best place to reach me. And I have my website, so I'll give you all those links so you can.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I'll make sure we post that. I just appreciate your courage, the inspiration that you've given all of us, the hope that you've given us. I mean, we do know that this is a spiritual journey that we will be going over and over again. Self-judgment does come up a lot. So we appreciate the tools that you've given us today. And Beatrice has quite a few more tools. She's an amazing woman and coach that has lots of different tools and activities. She's, like she said, she has a website and some different groups that she belongs to that will give you some ideas of things that you can do and how to be involved in that world of even further transformation. And it's always nice to be able to transform and work with other people so that you feel like you're not alone. Because I imagine when you first started on your journey, like you said, you're pulling yourself away from a community that you've been part of, all your life, and now you're creating your own community. So just kudos to you, and thank you for being who you are and sharing and growing and learning with us. And it was just an awesome time to have you here today. And folks, this will not be our last time of getting to chat with Beatrice, because she has a lot more to share with us, and including, we all have inspirational talks, so you'll get a chance to hear from her again. And just again, thank you for being you.
Thank you, Marie, for having me. And I guess I'll just end off with, I just remind myself every single day, I'm a spiritual being, and no matter my past and no matter what mistakes I've made or what I have experienced, I still deserve to have a joyous life full of happiness and joy. And the question is, what are the things I need to do every single day to get that?
And you have a special practice you do to get that. Do you want to share that with them?
A lot of practice, but I'll just share one that's been super important. Before I go to sleep, I write down 100 things that I'm grateful for. And I've been doing it now for, I've always did some form of gratitude. And I heard about this doing 100 things, and I was like, nah, no way, not me. And it's been awesome. It's like whatever mood I'm in, when you start writing down those things, and sometimes it can be as simple as I'm grateful for my toes. And then I start thinking, imagine if I didn't have toes, like, Right? It sounds like funny, but when you're actually like thinking about it and writing it down, like it just puts me to sleep in a different space. And then I wake up in the morning, and it's just different. And then, I journal, I meditate, all of those practices that really ground me, bring me. I mean, one of the grounding practices I do is I live in Brooklyn with a lot of concrete, not that much grass. So for me, doing whatever I can to connect to earth is really, really important. For those of you that live in other places that get to have a lot of that, enjoy that. For me, it takes special effort, but I do make that effort. Stepping straight on the grass with my bare feet, also super grounding, super connecting. So yeah, I mean, there's so many tools that are available for us to remind ourselves of our divinity, to bring ourselves to joy. And it's just a matter of tapping into them and using them as much as we can. And when we don't, not beating ourselves up about it, but just, one of the things I said I was grateful for was, a couple of days I was really spinning out at night, right? I'm human, right? I was spinning out. I was busy. I went to sleep way later. And then I woke up in the morning and I'm like, I am so grateful we get a night every night. We get to go to sleep and we get to wake up and start fresh again, So there are so many, it's all really a matter of how we look at it. And the more practices we bring into our lives, the more it's easier for us to shift our mindset and to bring us back to a place of joy, which is what we're truly here for.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that. I actually did wake up this morning with that very same gratitude, because yesterday was a little rough, and I go, I am so grateful to have another morning to restart that whole thing. And then it doesn't
Yes.
feel like a forever, right? We get a chance to begin again. And so
I
I'm
mean,
grateful for that.
yeah, truthfully, we can do that at any moment, but the night somehow gives us that little extra space.
There you go. Yeah, I can begin again in this moment. So yes, you are right. Again, thank you so much, Beatrice, for being here. We feel very blessed and honored to have you, and we look forward to learning more from you. God bless you. And for the rest of you, may you find the gold in you, because you are beautiful and amazing and wonderful. May you find the gold in others, because look what we get. We get these amazing relationships with amazing people that we learn from and are in community with. And may you find golden every day, because like Beatrice and I were talking about, there's something beautiful to be grateful for every single day. God bless.